Why did you invite all these subversives? I said, sir, I was not the one who invited them. What? I said, I drafted the letter and you signed it, and you were the one who invited.
Dante Simbulan was a graduate of the Philippine Military Academy and an active military officer with a rank of second lieutenant and an assistant professor when he joined the very movement the government wanted to annihilate. Dante, at the time, had a lot of questions in his mind.
We always invite the JUSMAG officers to lecture about the U.S. war in Vietnam, in Korea, and elsewhere. And I was wondering how come they always ask us to join their war in Vietnam. And there were many Filipino soldiers who were dying, in the war. So I suggested that maybe we should invite other Filipino professors who are well-versed in this subject.
3 academicians eventually made it to the list of invited lecturers. Professor Tony Pet Araneta, a graduate of the University of New England and husband to beauty queen Gemma Cruz.
He was easily approved. There were no questions because, the cadets and young people were all excited about a beauty queen addressing the cadets.
Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences of the University of the Philippines, and a prominent Marxist, Dr. Francisco Dodong Nemenzo, and UP Professor Jose Maria Sison, founder of the Kabataang Makabayan, the youth organization actively campaigning against the country's involvement in the U.S.-Vietnam War.
When he spoke about the Filipino participation, he called this the mercenary tradition of the Philippine military, which I said is true. After his lecture, there are about 7 cadets who became members of Kabataang Makabayan. And one of them was Victor Corpus. I was summoned by the superintendent. He was so furious, he was banging the door. God damn it, he was cursing. He called the adjutant. Was this Simbulan saying correct? The adjutant was scratching his head. He said, yes, sir, you signed the letter. And from that time on, I became persona non grata.
Ostracized by his peers in 1967, Dante decided to leave the PMA. He requested to be transferred to Manila,
so that I will be under the supervision of the former superintendent, who was my former boss in PMA. He is now the head of this intelligence group. At that time, in Camp Panopio, hook leaders were captured and detained in Camp Panopio. It confirmed my experience. When I was a second lieutenant, I was sent to fight the hooks, and I noticed that we approached the barrio in Pampanga. That's where I was assigned. People were running away from us, closed their windows and closed their doors, as if to prevent us from getting. I said to myself, I thought we were out to defend these people against the hooks. Why are they hiding and running away from us?
Lieutenant Simbulan eventually lost interest in pursuing a military career and resigned. Simbulan became a part-time professor at the University of the Philippines and full-time at the Ateneo de Manila University. The entire archipelago was by then placed under martial law by President Ferdinand Marcos. Professor Simbulan cannot be silenced.
Because of the support of some conservative members in Ateneo, I started criticizing why they should support a dictator. So they expelled me from the university.
Upon the invitation of Dr. Nemesio Prudente, Simbulan became Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences of the Philippine College of Commerce. The military kept a close watch of professors teaching at universities that are critical of the dictatorship, including Professor Simbulan. To cool off from being targeted by the military, Dante decided to go to the province. But the military would again be on his trail. During the raid, however, Dante was not to be found. The military finally caught up with him in October 1974.
The meeting was in the house of Reverend Paul Wilson, who is a visiting member of the Christian Church Disciples. Well, this guy is not even an activist. He's just a church person who wants to help people in the Philippines. So when they raided the place where we were meeting, the officer who was sent to arrest me was one time my student. They were insisting I was the head of the Corpus Tagamulila group, which I don't even know it existed. Because Corpus and Tagamulila were my students before, and they joined the NPA. You are from the military, why don't you help? If you help us, you'll be released. I said, no, that is not true, that I am the head of that. So he said, God damn it, he said.
For his refusal to cooperate, Dante was locked in solitary confinement.
Nilagay ako sa isang selda na actually it is the storeroom of the yung firearms and explosive unit ng Pasabilari. Mga 10 feet high at saka ang ventilasyon, ganun lang, window.
So I was confined for 3 months without any visitors.
Dante, who was then a husband and a father to a growing family, also had a son who took after his activism. Roland, his eldest and a student activist in UP, was also arrested months earlier, in March 1974.
At tapos, hinuli pa yung si Roland, hinuli, activist sa UP.
The torturers, the physical torturers, were my former students. Aguinaldo, he was killed by the NPA, by the way, in Cagayan. I said, sir, we are only under orders, but they did not physically torture me. So I was confined for 3 months without any visitors, and nobody can communicate with me. Somebody in my class, there is like a class solidarity, even though they know I rebelled against the government. They said, maybe he should be out of the, So they transferred me to the YRC, the Youth Rehabilitation Prison.
YRC was a high-security prison that housed prominent society figures and media personalities critical of the Marcos regime, such as Tony Pet and Enrique Araneta, PCC President Dr. Nemesio Prudente, and journalist Roger Arrienda.
Surprisingly, they put me together with Nilo Tayaga, KM, leader of the KM. We were 10 in all in a small cell, We were there for several months, giving us food that makes you sick.
When Simbulan fell ill due to high blood pressure, he was brought to a military hospital. After recovery, he was taken to Ipil, the largest prison facility for political prisoners.
Undersecretary of Defense Barbero was personally sent to my cell. They said, the moment you say something against the regime, we'll put you back. I mean, that's the threat. So they wanted me to meet. And really, the Secretary of National Defense, he said, we will release you if 3 of your classmates in PMA will guarantee that you will not turn against the government. At first I said, if things are going fine, I will not criticize. But if things are going wrong, my wife kicked me. I said, if you continue saying that, they will not release you until they make me sign that I will not. So they released me after 3.5 years.
Simbulan was kept in prison for 3.5 years with no charges, without any trial. After release, Simbulan was allowed to go back to teaching, but kept under close watch.
So I went back to UP. They saw to it that they assigned me to the PICAS, the think tank of Marcos, under a colonel. Until one time, they assigned me to this Asian Center, which is under PICAS. The dean was sort of sympathetic to what happened to me. Every time there is a invitation from the U.S., she recommends me.
It was in one of these trips that Simbulan started planning to leave the country and end the regime's stranglehold on him. Simbulan chose to be on self-exile. While in the U.S., Simbulan would get to meet Reverend Paul Wilson, in whose house he got arrested.
They were treated very badly. They were sent to, I think, Engineer Island. They sent convicts and put to be deported. And he was treated like a convict. So he was very angry, deported to the U.S., back to the U.S. He organized the churches.
Reverend Wilson offered Dante the position of executive director to the organization he himself organized and led, the Church Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, or CCHRP. The CCHRP played a pivotal role in organizing Filipinos in America to resist Marcos' dictatorship. It was during his self-exile that Professor Dante Simbulan began immersing himself in writing books. He first published his own PhD dissertation in Australia, The Modern Principalia, in 2005.
As I explained in The Modern Principalia, this is a tradition in the Philippines, the corrupt ruling elite. They sometimes politically they form parties that oppose each other, but they really do not.
During the launch of his second book, Whose Side Are You On? Memoirs of a PMAer in 2016, he was reunited with his student, Brigadier General Victor Corpus.
All the kasamas, particularly Katarungan, and the participants in making this book launch a success.
2 years later, in 2018, Dante published his third and most compelling book. When the Rain Comes, Will Not the Grass Grow Again? A book that tackled the socialist movement in the Philippines.
Dr. Dante Simbulan's book on the socialist movement in the Philippines, 1920 to 1960, is an excellent work of scholarship and a captivating narrative. It presents the socio-historical factors and concrete circumstances involved in the emergence, rise, and decline of the Socialist Party of the Philippines and the Communist Party of the Philippine Islands and revolutionary mass movement in 4 decades before 1960.
In 2022, son of ousted dictator Ferdinand Jr. and President Rodrigo Duterte's daughter, Sara Duterte, were voted into power as President and Vice President of the Philippine Republic, both from prominent political dynasties with a bloody human rights record.
While I believe that you cannot have true democracy unless there is a change in the ruling power, but at the kind of situation you are in, I don't think there is any other way. To change things is very difficult while these people are there, because they have control of the resources, the money. That's why they keep on putting funds which go in their pocket. And the control of the military is very, very important.
For Dante, the return of the Marcoses into power and the continued popularity of the Dutertes are largely due to the failure of the political opposition to prove themselves as a better alternative.
Sometimes there is hope, like when Ninoy Aquino was killed, Cory Aquino came out, and people were hopeful. But what happened? Killings of those who opposed the government continued. Now, there is hope that this opponent that Bongbong Marcos defeated, people are hoping that she will rise. But how come she's silent on the killings? And you know, I like some of the things that she advocates, but why does she not support the people's movement? I'm wondering, that's a big question mark. Core of the armed forces and the constabulary were graduates of the PMA. Only the rank and file were recruited from everybody, but the officers were all PMA graduates. At that time, they didn't call it PMA. They called it PCA, Philippine Constabulary Academy. After the American superintendents retired, they saw to it that the successors were graduates were sent to the U.S. first to study at the West Point. And when they came back, in other words, they are little Americans in outlook. AFP, from that time on until today, with the successive treaties like the Mutual Defense Treaty, we still allow the Americans to dictate the strategy because that's what they learned from West Point. Briefly, this means that the already dominant military presence of the U.S. in the region will be further bolstered by shifting, according to the Defense Secretary, 60% of the U.S. naval assets to the Asia-Pacific region, and strategically locating more than 2,000 troops, U.S. Marines, in Northern Australia. It will also engage in regular military exercises in the region. Aside from this, the U.S. has already entered into military agreements with ASEAN countries, as mentioned by Joseph, like the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and even Vietnam, to allow port visits by U.S. warships for logistics, services, and positioning military assets. But even prior to the pivot, the U.S. is already the dominant military power, not only in the Asia-Pacific, but in the entire world. Like, for example, the U.S. is tied to the defense of Taiwan. Why did they want bases in Cagayan? Because it's just stone straw. Just in case the Chinese invade Taiwan, And what will they use? They have a few thousand American soldiers there, but to fight several millions of Chinese, but we will be cannon fodders.
While on his Europe tour, Dante made sure to put Utrecht in the itinerary for a chance to visit and reunite with Jose Maria Sison. Dante's life has been filled with many challenges, even when he was still a young boy. Born in May 3, 1930, Dante was just 10 years old when his father passed away. His widowed mother had to take over selling of fish in order to support all her 8 children. Poverty did not deter Dante from striving hard, especially in his studies. But his being an outspoken patriot has placed him in many difficult situations, which he was able to hurdle with the support of his family.
I'm glad that my family supports all my commitments to the movement.
Grace Roque Guanlao, a teacher at La Consolacion College, and Dante were childhood sweethearts since they were in first-year high school in their hometown of Guagua, Pampanga. But Grace's father refused to allow Dante, a fish vendor's son, to visit his daughter in his home. Only when Dante arrived one day looking dashingly handsome in his PMA uniform was he invited into his future father-in-law's home. Their marriage will be blessed with 7 children.
In fact, one of them became a rebel.
UP Professor Roland Simbulan is an expert in U.S.-Philippine relations, publishing compelling books on the subject.
You know, the second one, Alfred. But up to the end, he was a committed revolutionary.
Dante was able to settle his entire family in the U.S., but sadly, on her birthday, April 3, 1988, Grace succumbed to her 8-year-long illness of bone marrow cancer. In 1995, Dante married Patrice Lushbo, a music teacher. Dante also proved himself as an artist. While in prison, Dante discovered his art. His painting of a jar, entitled Greek Art of Torture, is one of the permanent display of works by political prisoners at the Bantayog ng Mga Bayani Museum. This interview with Dante was done last quarter of 2023 at his home in Virginia, USA. Wearing a barong, the traditional Filipino attire, he still looked dashing and still the light-hearted man he has always been. But Dante's heart still aches for his motherland, the Philippines.
I am in a foreign soil, but my thinking is always in the Philippines. Every time I open the computer, I look at what is happening in the country. And we are all united in opposing this system of, this ruling elites, corruption, and so that we don't have real democracy in the country. We are all united in that. My message is don't give up and keep on studying our history, the history of the struggle. So long as you do not forget what the people ahead of us who perished in the struggle, who paid the way. They died physically, but the spirit keeps on.
Through his books, Dante made sure to pass on everything he knows to the present and next generation of young Filipinos who will carry on the torch of struggle towards genuine freedom and democracy.
Sisiri ng diwa ng lahi, mabalot sa ay, ay,